Hi guys, welcome to Arma 3 mission making in 15 minutes or less, and today we're going to be talking about the use of triggers, what they're for, what they can do, some of the strengths and the limitations, kind of how to set them up and things like that, and then we'll go through a list of examples of where we've got some triggers down, just half a dozen different examples of where we've got some triggers doing some stuff to make this mission work as the way that we want it to. So first of all, what is a trigger? Well, a trigger is either an entity, so one of our assets, you drop it in, it goes into an entity, and it's when a set of conditions, predefined conditions, are met, it will initiate an action. So, for example, we've got down here this trigger here, and what it's telling us is when the activation is blue 4, so when blue 4 are detected by op4 within the area of the trigger, then it's going to initiate a skip waypoint action. And what that skip waypoint does is tells this group here to skip this waypoint, and if we follow the other line of synchronization down this side, tells this group here to skip their waypoint. They'll then carry on with whatever activity it is that they're doing. And that's all the trigger is, that's all it's doing. How do we kind of set them up then? So jump into the trigger. Whenever you drop a trigger down, it's going to just say trigger in the entity. That doesn't necessarily help you understand what it is you want to do with it later on in the editing process. So I tend to give it a name. And we'll just do a skip waypoint on this one as well. We'll do armored column. Because this is one of the most simplest ways of using it. And we're going to say the type is going to be a skip waypoint. We've got a whole bunch of different ones in here, but ironically you rarely use them other than for skip waypoint or guarded by, and we'll see that example in a second. Activation. There are a number of ways of activating, and these are the conditions that we're talking about. So there's a number of ways of activating things. One's where you want to control specifically what happens and when it happens. A really useful one is the radio one, where you just basically in-game send a radio command and it'll initiate that activity. And then others are related to different type of actions here. So you can have a game logic one, for example. You can use a seized by a particular faction, or then you can use by any player, which is a playable character in game. It could be anybody, and then the next one here, from any player down to civilian, you designate this particular type of entity, so a playable character, anybody at all, blue 4, op 4, independent civilian. Let's just say blue 4 for example, and then you're saying as soon as blue 4 are present in an area, or maybe you want as soon as blue 4 are not present in an area, or detected by whichever kind of other faction, then you're going to initiate that activity. Repeatable, well, we've seen on the unit capture, if you want to repeat a particular action over and over and over again, you can have it as repeatable. And server only means that you're triggering only on the server. If you're playing this for multiplayer kind of stuff, that's pretty important, because otherwise when everybody walks through a particular trigger, say it's blue 4 present, it will trigger it every single time somebody goes in there. But we'll go for here, let's say as soon as blue 4 are or let's say as soon as op 4 are not present, then we're going to skip waypoint. What is that actually going to do? Why do we care? Well, we need to have blue 4. If we're going to have op 4 not present in something, they need to be not present somewhere. So let's say give it a 10 by 10. Oops, oopsie. 10. Drop over these guys here. Okay, so what we're saying is as soon as this group move out of this location, it's going to trigger something. And what are we going to trigger? Let's trigger a movement of an armored column. So we're going to chuck down, let's say armored, let's do FIA cars. What have they got? Not a lot. An HMG. Let's do 2 MG. We'll just do 2. That's enough. Vehicle 1, so you want them on fire, limited speed, and you want them open fire, and where is good. These guys drive on the right hand side of the road, so position on the right. We're going to give them a move. Of this instance, we're going to give them a hold. So this call sign is going to hold in this location until the trigger is triggered, and then from there they're going to move to door down. From that location they're going to move up to this area here, and then thereafter, I don't know, we'll give them a task hunt, go and find some bad guys. But in order to make it work, we need to synchronize the activity. So we find our little DD2 choose hand, go to set waypoint activation here, and you can see this dark blue line means it's synchronizing to an activity. Okay, happy days. That is now our skip waypoint trigger will be initiated by these guys not being present. Yeah, everyone happy so far. So there's a bunch of different things that we can do with triggers, and we'll have a look at some of those and go through a little bit of troubleshooting at the same time. So for example, what we've got over here, thanks to my man Rich, is a bunch of different ways of doing some kind of airdrop. If you want to do a power drop of blue force or op 4, or you want to do an airdrop of a vehicle or supply crate that's kind of pre-programmed, then we can use triggers to do that. In this one's here, we've got this aircraft. That's the formation. Let's get the actual aircraft. So here, this blackfish you can see is called Alpha Delta 1, and at the moment we can see it here, but in game you can't see it because it's on this show hide modules, combination of modules. And essentially what this module does is show the units, and what this module does is hide the units. At the start of the operation, this vehicle will be hidden, and then once this trigger is initiated, it will then show this vehicle will carry out its actions. The actions, this vehicle is going to fly over here, drop some blokes, and then fly off and disappear into the Ulu. In fact, we're going to delete the vehicle at the end of it. So that's all that's done, or all that's initiating is being initiated off of a radio trigger. So you can see in there the text tell us Charlie, just to remind me it's a radio Charlie. Activation is radio Charlie, server only, and that's all it does. Really simple, really easy. If we go over to into this location here, we've got a skip waypoint, and it's on a radio trigger, so we've seen something like that already, and all that's doing is telling us that this aircraft is going to hold that position. However, this trigger, slightly more interesting, obviously for a given value of interesting, means that you can see that the activation is owner only. What that means is that it will only be activated by a specific owner. In this case, it's this vehicle variable airdrop 2. And what will happen as soon as the owner enters the area of the trigger, it will call this function, which in essence kicks the vehicle cargo out of the back of the vehicle. So if we go down here, you see we've got this light blue line that differentiates between being synchronized with something and being an actual owner. And you can see the owner here. Here's the aircraft, airdrop 2, when it flies through, kicks its dude out. So that's 2 triggers there. Up here, we've just got two triggers. One is to capture unit capture data, and that's on a separate tutorial. And then we've got one down here, which is on a patrol. The difference on this one is I want this script to be repeatable. I want it to trigger over and over and over again. What it does essentially is it sends this vehicle around in just a little square patrol, nothing exciting, just keeps driving around, gets to this location, hits that trigger, repeats the trigger, which is send the script to drive it around in that square, and it just goes round and round and round for the entire duration of the mission, or until you blow up the vehicle. But that's what a repeatable trigger gives you. What we've also got over here, further down, is what's called guard triggers. Now, if I jump into this one, you can see in there the type is guarded by op4. No activation, no repeatable server only. And then this one down here, guarded by op4. And this one down here, guarded by op4. What is important here is the order in which you place the units. So, the first one that goes down is priority number 1. This one will be guarded by the op4. Whatever, no matter what happens, that's a priority to making sure that that location is guarded. Let's say I want the camp guarded as my top priority. Swap those two around. That means that now guys will guard that location first, this location second, this location third. Let's say you want the roadblock guarded first. then you just move it around. Okay, that's the first priority. What you then do is put down a bunch of different groups, and we've got here 4 different entities with the guard waypoint. What will now happen is the top priority will get manned by somebody, and it has to be somebody with a guard waypoint. So you'll see here we've got a bunch of guys on patrol around this location or on a task camp, but these guys here will have to go and do this kind of roadblock guard one. I'm going to stick it by this location here for funsies. They'll then put some guys into guard 2, some guys into guard 3. If we kill all the guys in guard 1, then these people from guard 2 will move to guard 1, and these people in guard 3 will move from guard 3 to guard 2. Let me drop these guys down here as well. Bit tricky, it depends on who's been put down in which order for which one's going to go. So you might see some guys run down here for priority 3 and these guys run over here for priority 1. Really exciting at the start of it, but essentially what we're getting at is that you can put these guys down. What that means is that you can take a location, for example, and it's another way of getting some dynamic reinforcement back to that location. What they'll also do is if they've seen that guarded by and they come under contact, then these guys, if they're close enough, will come in and support them and start patrolling where the last known location of Blue 4 was and start engaging them. Let's have a look at these things in mission. So here we can see we had our guarded by, they're slotting into their guard slots and making sure that our location is guarded. If I now delete this guy, then you'll see one of these guys will start snurgling down there, and off they go. They're going to run down and occupy the guard position that they've been told to go and guard. That's their kind of their job. So it allows you to keep that dynamic reinforcement. If we go over to here, we've seen the guys being deleted here and these guys snurgling up. But if we can look at the airdrop. So I said, remember before the show hide. So if I jump in here underwater, you can see the icon but no aircraft, right? So if I go into radio, it's Charlie. You can see it's now appeared, and it's going to go and fly and do its thing. Go back out into radio. Delta, that's that skip waypoint that we saw. We should now see this aircraft start taking off. But there it goes. Now you can see this guy's hit his waypoint to do his airdrop. This always makes me laugh in that they're static until the parachute comes out and they come down. There are limitations in Arma, but you know that's not a bad airdrop. If you watch this guy here, so remember this one was on a owner only, so it has to wait until it hits the area, which is in and around this area here. I'll take a line between the lighthouse and the bus stop and placing it, and we'll see as soon as it hits that area, it's going to kick whatever cargo it has in its hold. It's going to kick it out. So if you're watching here, flies through the trigger, and drops the vehicle. Guys, that is it. Triggers 15 minutes or less. Any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. Good luck with your mission making. Thanks very much.